here we are, sub-CLE. Let me introduce Mr. Tony Erba.
Chindan.
Yeah. How you doing, man?
In my best Joe Walsh, how you doing?
Thought it'd be interesting to go into Frank Kavanaugh. I just had him on last, and he said you owed him $20.
Well,
and
I can't believe he remembers that hand job, but hey, any port in a storm, Frank.
How do you know Frank Kavanaugh?
I was in a crummy little first hardcore band called Lek. I grew up in Parma Heights.
Lek, what is that?
It meant nothing. We took the name out of there was a Cream, or I think it was a Cream magazine offshoot called Metal, and we'd get it all the time. And they had a hilarious writer, Chuck Eddy, who was just fucking really acerbic and sarcastic. and one of the articles in Cream Metal was 10 great unused band names, and it was like ridiculous stuff like the Pineapple Screen Door and Lek, and we're like, that's the name for the band, Lek, and that was Jim Kanya, myself, PJ Shaheen.
Okay,
Chris
I just
Pello.
want to say that was the obligatory Jim Kanya.
Well, he was a huge part of my life, so he'll come up frequently in anecdotes. But
everybody, every time.
Yeah, I love the guy, man. In fact, I have you can see my tattoo right here. It's the Kanye tattoo.
Okay. Oh, nice.
But anywho, so that was our first band, and that was like 86 through 88, and then in 88 I moved to Coventry, which was our Greenwich Village.
Right.
And I met all the I had kind of seen, I'd seen Confront, False Hope, Outface. These were like the hardcore bands, second wave of hardcore, when all the original bands either broke up or went metal or got on heroin or whatever. So Confront, Outface, False Hope, they were really making things happen. And moved to Coventry, and on Coventry Yard Mall at the top of the hill before they, it used to be all grass and stuff. At Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, there'd be 75, 100 people just hanging out up there. Hippies, goths, punks, skaters, hardcore kids. Yeah. And Frank was part of he was in, I think he was he was in a band, Oif, I think, Only in Fun. And then he was in Outface with Charlie and Mark and all those guys, and they were a fantastic band. They sounded like the original incarnation was very Dag Nasty-ish, and then they went on to be more Bad Brains-ish, and then they were, who knows where they would have gone, but they were fantastic. Frank was a great dude. Charlie, all those guys were fantastic, and that's how I met Frank. And he was just it was weird, like in Parma, we were the sons and daughters of like barbers and shop rats and steel mill workers, and in the Heights, it was like sons and daughters of like philosophers and professors and financial people. So another crazy thing is a lot of those guys were in AA. So this hardcore scene, the straight edge thing, a lot of those guys got into straight edge because they were sober, meaning sober. They're in AA. I think Frank might have been in that, but don't quote me because I don't want to put that on his books, if that's untrue. But I think he might have been. But he was a really great guy and a hell of a bass player, man.
Yeah.
He had, I remember he had sweet the Sun bass stack, and he had a Washburn bass, and he got a killer tone through it. And it just was always very kind and nice to me, and I really liked the guy a lot.
So tell me a little bit more about Lek. So what is it? L-E-C-K?
L-E-K.
L-E-K?
Meant nothing.
Okay.
But so that was Kanya, myself, this guy PJ, this guy Ron Merck, and Chris Pello. And we were like, Pello and I were more into like late 70s Los Angeles punk and stuff. Okay. But also into hardcore, obviously Minor Threat and stuff. And then Merck was into total death metal. He ended up in Schnauzer and Apartment 213.
Okay.
Kanye, of course, everyone knows Kanye. He's just a crazy metal maven. And then PJ was totally into like the Ramones. So he had one guy playing, like Merck would play like like metal picking. Yeah. And then PJ would be like, and we were just, our songs were not, as they say, realized fully. So. In other words, we sucked, and we were very fast and very crazy.
Sure, but that's
highly entertaining, though.
Well, that's what you do when you're younger, Yeah. I mean, but so where did you play anywhere?
Yeah, we played backyard parties, basement parties. We only had ever 2 club shows. One was with the first club show we ever played was in Akron at this place called the Bauhaus. I think this was 87 or so, 86. We played with Sockeye Legends, the Kent Legends Sockeye, who were like crazy pee-pee, poo-poo humor, like real degenerates, but hilarious.
Yeah.
And that was my introduction to band life because I remember Greg from Sockeye booked the show, and the club was fairly filled. It wasn't a big club, but Greg worked the door, and he got shit-faced and took all the money, and I was like, oh, this is how it works.
All right.
And then our biggest show was we opened for Warzone and Confront at this club called September's in Bedford, which was like a big rock club, and that was like, oh, man, we're playing in front of a couple hundred people. But as usual, you know, like another introduction, like Warzone, apparently this guy who owned the club had his hobby was taxidermy, so he had this back room of the club that was all like fucking deer heads and stuff, and Warzone got shit-faced and fucking destroyed the fucking taxidermy. And then somehow our band got blamed for it.
Oh, sure. Know? Well, like, you booked the show, right?
We can't catch a fucking break. I didn't book it. We just fucking finagled our way on, but it was like, you know, yeah, those assholes did it, you know.
Right.
And that was it. That was about it. And then I moved away I was like, the band wasn't going anywhere. We weren't that great. And Connie was destined for greater things, and so was I, and all the other guys as well. So
what'd you decide to do, like, after that? Like, what happened?
I moved to Coventry to be with my people, the straight edgers,
right.
and hardcore people, because, you know, the east side at that point was where it was happening. Parma was still stuck kind of like 5 years behind the time culturally, you know.
Yeah.
At that point, you know, you couldn't buy yogurt in Parma. That's because in order to have yogurt, you must first have culture. So I moved to Cleveland Heights, lived on Coventry with a bunch of friends, like this punk house and stuff, and I wasn't doing anything other than going to gigs and working at a pizza place and hanging out with my friends. And then this band, the Bagmen, had Don Foose as the singer.
Okay.
Don Foose quit and joined the Spud Monsters, and they needed a singer. And they asked me because I was like in with the straight edge scene, and like, you know, I had hustle, and like, you know, I was like a loudmouth and really wanted to do it. I had ambition and drive, very little talent, but very short on talent, but long on I guess I just had a red ass and wanted to do it more than anyone else. So they got me in the band, and the rest, you know, we changed the name to Face Value, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Okay, so Face Value, here we are. That saves me the whole segue. So Face Value, that's definitely a name I've heard. I've never, I gotta say I don't know too much about Face Value, but maybe you can expound on that.
I joined the band in March '89. We did a demo. Shortly thereafter, we started playing shows. I think the first show, official show, was August '89 at the Berea Rolling Bowl. And first it was like a couple crossover guys, like crossover metal guys, like guys into the Crumbsuckers and stuff. And then the drummer was into, like, you know, hardcore and punk, and of course I was. So we kind of streamlined things, decided what style we're going to play, what we're all into. We also had this guitar player, Tony Brown, who joined at the same time as I did. And he was like a crossover guy. These guys were from the country, too, like Seville. Right. Like,
so, well, what were the names? Like, who was the lineup at the very beginning?
It was Downtown Brown, who joined at the same time as me. His name was Tony Brown, but he lived in West Salem, which is way the fuck out there by Ashland.
My dad lived out there, yeah.
Yeah, so immediately I'm like, I call him Downtown as like a rib on him, you know, because this guy is like so fucking country, you know. Right. But he was the nicest guy. He was like a golden god, like fucking ripped, aw shucks attitude, like handsome. And the guy is such a killer guitar player. Best guitar player I ever played with. So he was on guitar, and Tony Hinton from a crossover band, Violent Effects, was on bass, and Scott Dolan, who basically founded the band, was the drummer.
Okay.
And we had another guitar player for a short while, this dude John Coleman, this heavy metal guy, but he didn't last long. So we kind of like decided we're going to play this style. They let me write a lot of the songs, and I wasn't like, I'm no good at guitar. I'm pretty good at bass, but I would write these songs on bass. And I always felt that those guys were slumming it because they're such good players, but they were happy as shit to be playing fast anthemic hardcore, you know?
Right.
So we started doing that, and then we put out records, and we put out a 7-inch that went over really well, and then we did a full length that went over really, really well, and toured our asses off. We would just constantly hit the road.
Yeah, what were the kind of places you would play?
Well, we started like when we started playing, we still kind of had like, this time it was getting it started to get like real, like kind of like codified, like these straight edge bands, you had to have a certain look, like dress sense was very important, like,
So you say straight edge. I kind of want to go back to that, but like, you were like no drugs, no drinking, nothing, whatever.
Right.
So, I mean,
I never really got into any of that, to be honest.
Ever?
As I sip whiskey.
Yeah.
But not like to the point of being like a drunk or abusing drugs. And I never really did drugs or partied. Like, it just wasn't my thing. I had, I'm kind of like a high strung, and I wanted to just do the band, and someone has to fucking be in charge. And, so it was almost like it's just not my thing. I don't know how else to say. But I was never a guy like, back in those days, 88, 89, we were all kind of like militant for 10 minutes.
Sure, yeah.
It's not my nature to be exclusionary.
Okay.
Most of my friends, I'm the one idiot who doesn't smoke pot out of my tribe. But anywho, that was really happening, burgeoning. The straight edge scene was like, you had these great bands like the Guns and Offbeats, and
you had Fugazi and stuff like that, right?
Well, in Cleveland specifically, all these awesome first wave of hardcore bands were all breaking up, Knife Dance and stuff, or going metal.
Okay.
And so at that time, the straight edge guys were like the ones who were like youthful and enthusiastic and finding halls to put shows on, making shit happen. And I was like, it was really inspiring. And the bands were all great. It was the best bands ever came out of Cleveland for hardcore. Confront, Outface, and False Hope. They were the best.
Yeah.
And the Guns. So those guys were making shit happen, and I was like really inspired and wanted to be with these dudes and have my band sound like that.
Right.
So we set about revamping the band. We were never a straight edge band, just me.
Right.
But we had some struggles because it was kind of like elitist. Like, oh man, that guy's not dressing like this or whatever, it shouldn't matter, but it does,
Yeah.
So we just kind of hit the road for a while. Like, everyone was up Integrity's ass. They were blown up, super huge, and we couldn't get arrested in town. So we just started playing. I always try to book the band like a wrestling territory. We'll start off like with the radius of 3 to 6 hours. We'll play Detroit, Buffalo, Toledo, Columbus, etc., and then slowly expand the circle.
Sure.
And I've stuck with that strategy to this day. Okay. So Friday would be a show where you could work your full day at work and then still make the town, like Detroit or Buffalo. And then Saturday would be the far show, and then you drive back on Sunday. And we would do that. And we did that for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
Nice.
With no Cleveland shows. And when we came back, then word had circulated. Our songs had circulated, demos in the first 7-inch, and then when we played started playing it back in Cleveland again, the band was popular.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because like people always say like just play outside of your hometown and then you come back and then for some reason you're drawing more.
I never wanted to have Michael Stanley syndrome where it's like, you're the big fucking cheese in town, but you can't sell out a photo mat fucking 40 miles outside of town. It was validating to be able to say we played at the Pipe Dragon in Buffalo and the place was jam-packed and people knew our band and knew the songs and would sing along. That's validation. You're a working band then, Right. You are a working band that's got some shit going on and you might even have a record out. That's validation as a band other than playing like, we're playing the fucking 5 o'clock for the 72nd time.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
I just wanted more,
No, and and it's probably a lot easier to get like outside support when somebody sees that you're trying harder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. They see the hustle. That counts for something, but no one's going to give you shit. You have to beg, borrow, steal, cajole. Right. I did anything to get us on shows, and I never fucked anyone over, but I just was a pest, and I was like, because at that point I had people say, well, you're intelligent or whatever, you could have done this or that, but I had no ambition in school or anything to go to college or anything. since I'm like 15, all I wanted to do is be in an underground band and go on the road and go to California.
Right.
And that's not a recipe for success, because one day you wake up, you're 40 and you have no life skills. They're playing in bands that will never get played on the radio,
Yeah, but I mean, we can get philosophical right now, but I think that you have a lot of life skills in a lot of different ways. Maybe it's not skills in a capitalist society or whatever in that way, but you are more at peace and with your at peace of mind.
Now I am sure. I went through the midlife crisis like everyone else, but the bands taught me everything. Bands taught me how to hustle, how to survive, how to fucking roll with the punches, deal with disaster, deal with being fucking stuck in Fargo, North Dakota with no money and a van that has no transmission and no way of getting home. It taught me how to sell myself, how to sell the band, how to talk to people from all different walks of life, interact with people from all different acts. I wouldn't trade. I mean, I learned more than that than I could ever learn with a 4-year fucking bachelor degree,
Okay, so let's go into face value. So here we are still at Face Value. You guys are touring around the country. Have you did international anything or? We
started going out in like 89, late 89, and then early spring 90 we went did like a southern run for a couple weeks, and then we did from 91, 92, 93, we did 3 months in the summer every year. Okay. So these guys, like Downtown worked for his father. They had a metal fabrication company, which he now owns. He could take off whenever. Scott, the drummer, he worked for the Medina County Library System, and for some reason, the guy had an ungodly amount of personal time off. So he wouldn't lose his job. Hinton, the bass player, loved the dude, and he was just always like, he had girlfriends that would support him. He didn't give a fuck. He's like, fuck yeah, man, let's go, brah. Like, he didn't care, Right. And me, I would every year I'd have to quit a job. And I had good jobs, that I'd somehow hustle and scam and get. Sure. And I'd have to leave these jobs. So 91, 92, 93, we did 3 months every summer. Yeah. June, July, August,
Wow. Okay, and so you did that for how long?
Three years. And then I left the band then in 93.
So why'd you leave them?
Well, 91, our first record, Price of Maturity, came out. That was the big record. That was the best record we made. A very good record.
Was it on
came out on a label, Conversion, out of California, who put our first single out, Coming of Age. So we had a really good, strong name recognition. People knew about the band. But we were not a cookie cutter band. We were playing with a lot of straight edge bands, but we were not cookie cutter. We were kind of hard to classify because we basically sound like a hardcore band, but we had hard rock sensibilities,
right?
And it's in a way it hurt us because if we were by the numbers cookie cutter straight edge band, we probably would have been bigger,
right?
But we also wouldn't have played. We were able to play with really varied bands, very talented other bands of our ilk that we played with wouldn't even try to book fucking Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Yeah.
We didn't give a fuck. And if we had a night off, we'd call around the metal and rock clubs and try to get booked,
Right.
And we had some awesome experiences that I would never trade for the world.
That's awesome.
So then the second record, I didn't write as much for the second record, music. So we put out a second full-length record called Kick It Over, and it wasn't as good. The production wasn't as good. The songs were more rock. Good songs, but we went from being there's this band Uniform Choice that was the first record is all-time classic, straight edge, anthemic, fast, hardcore record. And then the second record is these guys listened to a lot of U2. It was way too dramatic of a shift between the two records, and that we did the same fucking thing. SSD Control, same thing. You have to remember that you're at an age, your early 20s, where your mind is getting opened and you're listening to different things and it creeps into your songwriting.
Right.
So the second full length, Kick It Over, it had good hardcore songs on it, but it also had some boogie rock stuff on it, which I fucking love.
What do you mean boogie rock?
Longer songs, more rock and roll, Okay. We had one song that I heard it on MMS twice.
Oh, yeah.
And not even on the local show. And I was like, holy shit. But I mean, a hardcore band is not going to get played on MMS. So you could tell it was a more rock oriented stuff and slower. And, the record wasn't that great, and those guys want to go to Europe, and I was like, we should not go because European audiences are super hardcore. They're very political. They really fucking believe in hardcore. They really,
yeah,
they're really into it. They're fucking true believers. I'm like, we're going to go over there, man. And it's like, this is not a strong record,
Why didn't you think it was a strong record?
It wasn't. It just wasn't. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
It wasn't that great of a record. No. It had, it would have been a good 7-inch with maybe 5 songs on it. But
okay.
It wasn't the songs are good. It's just too dramatic of a change from the record that came before it.
Right.
So they wanted to go to Europe, and I was like, I don't think it's a good idea, man. And they insisted on going because they thought the opportunity would never rise again. So they went, and I was like, I can't do it. Plus, I was losing my job every fucking year, and
right.
These guys weren't, and I couldn't do it. I don't have a safety net. My parents have no money.
Yeah.
The chance of me moving back to my parents never existed.
Right.
So it's sink or swim, and with limited life skills and talent,
right.
I just had to dude, I lived in a fucking tent for 2 months. At one point I was so impoverished. No shit, in the metro parks. So I was like, I can't quit my job, and I think it's a bad move to go to Europe. We should do another record that's a more return to form record, then go to Europe. And they also, I think they had a metal guy, like a heavy metal agency booking the band. It was like, we might be booked in some wrong clubs and stuff. But they went, and they took another guy, and I guess, I don't know how well it went, but I heard that there were some incidences over there where it was like, they didn't tell people that I wasn't going to be singing.
Right.
So they showed up, and people in Germany are like, "Und, where is Erba? Who is this fucking guy?" So not good. And then I was out of the band.
So who replaced you? Was it?
Well, actually, he's a good guy and a friend. This guy, Tommy Vietz, he was in the Virgin Destroyers.
Okay.
And he was a good guy. He worked at Chris's Warp forever. I think he might even still be a stagehand at House of Blues.
Okay.
Nothing against Tommy Vietz. Always a nice guy. But, they went over there with a guy that was like a heavy metal guy that wasn't me, and they didn't tell anyone, and it wasn't good.
So what's your appeal?
My appeal?
Yeah.
My strong lantern jaw, piercing azure eyes, firm heart-shaped ass, and crescent upturned nipples.
You've thought about this.
I used to say that shit to girls, and sometimes it got over.
Yeah. So, no, but what is it like? So I guess, I don't really care about all that. I guess at this point, hang on, what I really care about is, what is it that you're expressing? Like when you do music or you express yourself in some way, like what is it? What are you pulling from, A
lot of it is personal, so angsty, so traumatic, like childhood experiences, never being in the cool kids club. I know it's hard to believe looking at my chiseled visage now, but I was always chubby and unathletic, and didn't have much luck with the ladies, and I was always a smaller guy, so I had to fight for everything: respect, not getting my ass beat, that type of thing. So I had that kind of churn inside me, and also a certain set of personal politics and beliefs, the opinions I held very dear, all that kind of stuff. Plus at that time in face value, it was your early 20s, and it's like, I have no skills to survive in this world. I can't do anything. Right. I'm not good at anything. All I'm good at is running my mouth. After watching a lot of professional wrestling and televangelists as a kid, and being able to kind of like channel your inner heel, like I can get up on stage and say a bunch of smart ass stuff, like kind of like a wrestling dick, and not only does it like seem to get over the crowd, and they like pay to see this happen. So it's like, this is fantastic, I'm able to be actually me, and away from this, I'm just like, I just try not to get my ass kicked,
What were you saying?
Nothing, just kind of peacocking and singing lyrics that were self-expression, diatribes and things like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas I can't let this side of me show at work or with like a woman or to my dad or my mom. They would think I'm like, they'd have me committed,
Yeah, yeah. Right. Would they have you committed? I mean, yeah, I'm sure you're not saying anything too crazy, right?
No, but to them,
Yeah.
to society at large at that point, this is like 1990, it wasn't like now anything goes,
Right.
I mean, if you mentioned trans back in 1990, you were talking about a tranny from a Chevelle.
And
you know what I mean?
And not saying that you're trans, but that's to show how far it's come, because just as being a regular, normal white man, it was hard to express yourself, even not being trans or anything crazy. But now you can express yourself in that way. You know what I mean?
Way different world now than it was. I used to, my father was a barber for like 50 years, and I used to bleach my hair because I was like, loved Dave Smalley from Dag Nasty and all. And I just thought it looked so cool, and like the guy from Wasted Youth and stuff. And it was like, that was still like, just bleaching my hair like a pro wrestler was like an affront, And for many years, I thought my nickname was like, "Hey, faggot," because you just get fucked with something so innocuous.
Right.
Bleach blonde hair,
Yeah.
Now it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, now that's normal.
100%. Hands off the fucking weird looking dude, because you'll be canceled, which is good. I mean, society evolves. Devolves. You cannot stop the inertia. You just have to fucking find where you fit in. You know what I mean?
Well, ride the wave.
Ride the wave, man.
Yeah, and it is weird. Yeah, it's funny that is good perspective actually that you said that, because like, just thinking about because they say it must be easy to be a white man, and I'm not trying to forgive anything. I definitely. No, it's been easier in my life just because I've been a white man, But thinking back then, though, like, it was hard to really express yourself, Just because I was an artist in some way, and I tried to express myself, I got labeled gay or whatever, or because I'm into art. Now it doesn't seem. I don't know. It doesn't seem that way. Maybe it still is. Maybe I'm not as young as I used to be. I don't know, but
well, Vince. I mean, here's the thing, man. I don't like the generalizing. Every person's unique experience, is uniquely theirs. My life has been not easy, and me being a cracker did not help me at all.
Right.
I'm here to tell you.
Right. No. Right.
But I'm also not blind to the fact that having a society built and written in constitutions and declarations of independence by crackers is written to benefit them,
Right.
Back when persons of color were chattel. So I get that. But when you start generalizing, especially now there's this vitriol towards like you cis white man, it's like, you're literally Hitler. Like, come on. Okay.
Right.
Step away from the keyboard.
Right.
So everything is perspective and gradients, Generalization is not really good. You can say this exists, but you cannot say, because I, happen to be a honky, I had it necessarily easier. Because let me tell you something. It did not feel easy when I was sleeping in the practice room, sleeping in a tent on the side of the bike trail, and getting my ass fucking mugged on public square for my shoes, okay? Right. And it wasn't honkies doing it either.
Yeah. No. Well, I guess that's a whole different thing. But, yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just, I guess the point I was trying to make was it's, even though, even though like on society standards and in a place that we're living at today, a lot of people will say it's a lot easier to be a white man. A lot of people will say that, whatever, just in general, to generalize.
The framework, the societal structure is built to benefit the white man, but it was a pendulum.
Right.
The pendulum has swung completely different way. Now we are viewed as the default setting for you and I is we're fucking evil. We're slavers somehow.
Right. But I guess my point, and that's a whole different discussion, but I guess my point is you are sitting there saying that even as that guy that everyone says is the favored person, even as being that guy, it was still difficult for you to express yourself completely as who you were, You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why I feel that blanket statements don't do anyone any good, because
Right.
while there may be a grain of salt in it, every individual's personal experience can run contrary to that, you know.
Right.
But you cannot also say that to a certain extent white privilege doesn't exist, because that's a lie.
Right.
It's a complete lie, you know.
Well, yeah, it
just
definitely exists, but you can't blanket everything. Everything is an individual struggle. Like, should we all try harder as an individual? Sure. Do different groups have it harder than other groups? Sure. You know, when you look at metadata and what, you know, and you know, sure. But yeah, as an individual, you should always say, hey, you know, what did we talk about earlier? Looking for solutions instead of excuses. You know what I mean? You know,
very much so.
Yeah.
Redlining existed. There's two systems of education, and poor folks living in underserved communities don't have as good as these things are as obvious as a wart on your face. You cannot deny them. But when you come at it with this constant attack, like this is all one class's fault, and the default setting is you're evil and you cannot overcome this, no matter how enlightened or illuminated you become, helps nobody.
Or whether or not which perspective you're looking at that from, which angle you're looking at it from, you know.
I think we've come a long way, don't you?
Yeah,
I think we've come an incredible long way.
I think we've come a very long way. You know, there is still slavery in the world, but a lot less than there used to be, you know. But
shit's not going to change overnight. It's a long slog. But think of it, my mom's time was like crazy with fire hoses turned on black people and stuff. You know, that's like not. I mean, America's a young country, and that was not that long ago if you think about it.
You know, and well, I can take this and just say, well, basically, it doesn't come down to like color or anything like that. It comes down to like the ruling class and the subservient class.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, money are the shackles that bind us.
100%.
It's 100%. Like, you know, I mean, we can get really philosophical. But I want to get back to face value, change singers. What did you do at that point?
So they got a new singer. Tommy Veets did the tour. They come back and they get a different guy, one of Downtown's friends, and they carried on. They made records without me, and I was like, well, I'm gonna do something different. So I had been writing a lot of songs for Face Value on bass, because it was like really impossible to like show guys without being able to play. Like, it's weird. It's like intricacies that it's hard to explain. Like I was saying, like if a guy would pick a riff like dun, 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 and you're trying to be like no like dun, 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 you know, it's inherent and it's intrinsic. It's a feel, and sometimes you can't teach it. So I basically picked up a bass to show these dudes my songs. So with that, I kept playing bass, and then the bass player of Face Value went to prison. That really fucked the band up. Someone rolled over on him. He was selling shrooms out in Medina, Wayne County area, which is small. He got pinched. Someone rolled over on him. He went to prison. Then we had a succession of fill-in guys, some better than others, some cooler than others. But for a while, we didn't have a bass player at all. So it was just the three of us jamming, and I was playing bass for the songs and not singing. And I became a pretty good bass player, and I was writing the songs. So for my next band, after I was out of the band, I became the bass player of a new band with my brother Chris, who sang. I played bass, and these two guys from this really awesome hardcore band that were kind of like, not as like I thought they should have been like more prominent and bigger in the scene. This band Gag Reflex from the east side, they were playing like a real Poison Idea, almost Japanese hardcore influenced style of hardcore, and I thought these guys were awesome. So the drummer Wedge, who became like a super close friend of mine to this day, and the guitar player Chard joined forces with me and my brother, and we started a band called the H100s, where I was on bass, and my brother sang, and Wedge played drums, and Chard played guitar. And we took it back to a more stripped down, real primitive, real raw, angry, early 80s hardcore, Battalion of Saints, Discharge, and Japanese hardcore influenced. Mm-hmm. And it was a weird time for that band because it's 1994, and the scene had gotten really kind of like, it was like during the time where like, so like you'd go to a show and instead of slamming, people would like sit on the floor cross-legged and were like,
oh yeah,
it got very kind of obscenely PC because it became like theatrical. Like,
right.
I get how things are changing and stuff, but you're so theatrical. It's almost like kabuki with like your new rules and rituals, and we just wanted to appropriate bands that we grew up loving,
right.
And we came just a few years too late to see. We wanted to be like Flag in 81,
right.
or Battalion of Saints, or Gizem, where it's just like fucking crazy, like, I don't want to say violent, but pretty aggro, and that was not cool at that time, and people did not like our fucking band. They were like, these guys are assholes, these guys are fucking violent, and it's like we weren't, but we had trouble. We'd play shows, and there'd be riots, and all kinds of problems and stuff, so that band didn't last long, but it was one of those bands that, like, after we broke up, people were like, dude, the H100s were gods, you know. Like,
how long did that last? What was that?
So, like, 2 years.
Okay.
2 years, 94 to 96. We played some out-of-town shows. We played shows in Cleveland, but we had problems with trouble at shows and people pulling the plug on us and stuff, you know.
Okay.
My brother's crazy. He's a crazy singer, crazy vocalist, real, like... He would have been perfect in like 1981 in Los Angeles because he was so aggro, and you know we're kind of heels on, you know, like on stage. We really antagonized the crowd and kind of tongue in cheek, but it was like this was the era of like kids dressing like they were in the Charlatans UK with floppy hair and big oversized Janko jeans and stuff,
right.
Sitting on the floor cross-legged, you know. They didn't want to see a bunch of guys who looked
like... Wasn't that like speaking tongues time period?
It was like right before that. Yeah, yeah. And it was like a thing where like, we don't play clubs, we only play houses, you know. It was like so affected, you know, so effete. And there's nothing wrong with creating your own alternative thing, but to the exclusion of other bands that are like, we're still part of your tribe, you know.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden, you are the kingmakers, like... And you're so far up your own ass, you know?
Right.
Fuck you.
So what'd you do after that?
The H100s morphed into Nine Chucks Terror. My brother moved to New Mexico, and so it was still the three of us, myself, Chard on guitar, Wedge on drums, and we got this guy from this band, The Mormons, this guy Steve Peffer, and he was this tall, real spindly, awkward guy who was... He was really snotty, and he was like, I'm like, this guy's kind of a dick. He's perfect. And he became a singer, and then we had the 10-year run after that. And
so Steve Peffer had a brother, I think.
Mike, who's in Biblical Proof of UFOs.
Okay,
He's a fantastic dude. Really talented guy.
Yeah, that's interesting. Didn't Steve go with Biblical at some point?
I don't think Steve was ever in the band. No, he was in like Homo
Stupids. They were instrumental, but I think they did like a short run with some.
Oh, mate, they could have. You know,
yeah,
they very well could have.
Okay, but so that's a lot. That's a lot to take in because I'm like putting myself in that time period because I remember I was down at Rock and Roll City Studios and we used to practice next to Biblical Proof of UFOs. And those guys were just amazing.
Incredible, man.
Yeah.
They came out of that whole thing like Craw and bands like that. They were like really like doing this complex like math rock type stuff, but still had a lot of balls to it, you know.
And groove and just rhythm.
Fantastic.
And dynamics and everything, you know. I mean, it was just amazing. It was amazing stuff. I
liked Mike. I liked Biblical Proof quite a bit. That was kind of like the Euclid Tavern scene.
Yeah.
They were big with... In that era, the Derek Hess era at the Euclid Tavern, with Biblical Proof and Craw, and you know, every week it seemed like Keepone or Craw or Hammerhead or the Cows were rolling through, and Biblical Proof or Craw inevitably would open the shows. You know.
Nice. So going back into, so you got this band together, Nine Chucks Terror.
Yeah.
Go on about that.
Well, it was basically, we don't want to break up just because Chris is moving away.
Okay.
So we got Steven.
Where'd that name come from? I'm curious about the name because it's a great name, and it just sounds great. It's very percussive.
It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I tell you what, man. Like a name of a band, you're either making it or breaking it from the start. When the Spudmonsters wanted to stop being kind of like a goofy core band and they got Foose in the band, they want to be serious and be like New York hardcore and stuff. It's like they were hindered by the fucking band name,
Right.
Like the Crumbsuckers got over despite their name, but they were from New York, the Spudmonsters from Cleveland. So they always kind of struggled with the name. So our band's like the band that Nine Shocks formed out of, the H100s, was like slang for a quarter stick of dynamite. Nine Shocks Terror was named after a record called Nine Shocks Terror, meaning there's 9 songs on this record by this Japanese hardcore band called Lip Cream. The Japanese hardcore bands took everything that the American hardcore influence gave to them, but they just played it more vicious and more crazy and wild, more stop on a dime, more precise. And Lip Cream was our favorite because they had a strong, rock and roll feel. Like they had this guitar player who would rip off these real quick Chuck Berry leads and stuff.
Yeah.
We just love this band. I'm like, what a cool name for a band, Nine Shocks Terror.
Right.
And it was it took about 30 seconds of banding that about. And we're like, fucking sounds good to me,
Yeah.
There was not a whole lot of thought put into it.
No,
but it is a cool
that's
name.
That's the best. Well, those are actually even the best songs. The ones that you kind of just write in 5 minutes, and it's like, wow,
always,
okay,
always. If you overthink it, unless you're Yes or ELP, right. This is guitar, bass, and drum, fucking 3-chord rock music.
Yeah.
Don't cock it up.
Right.
Just keep it simple.
So tell me about what's the Nine Shocks Terror sound? Where'd that come from? And what were you doing there? I
was a bass player.
Okay,
just like I was in the H100s. I'm sorry. I continued on bass, and
Pepper was that singer.
Steve was the singer.
Okay.
Right. So the same 3 guys from the H100s, minus my brother, but with Steve on vocals.
Okay.
A mix of all kinds of things. There's a strong hard rock influence in the band. There's a strong Japanese hardcore element in the band, early American U.S. hardcore. We always had, we're Clevelanders, so we have rock music running through our veins,
Right.
We are at birth in Cleveland, you're issued a copy of Frampton Comes Alive, Michael Stanley Band Stage Pass, and probably an AC/DC or fucking right. Bachman Turner record, right?
Yeah.
So that's intrinsic, man. It flows in your veins.
Yeah.
So our band had all those elements, and we didn't apologize for it either, even though it was probably uncool to be like, oh man, we're going to fucking rip off this fog hat part for the breakdown. Right. We did it, and it made us unique and different,
That's awesome.
And we also had an aesthetic where we had a shitload of mismatched vintage stacks. We played with a lot of firepower with amps and stuff, and kind of set us apart from bands. I always thought it was stupid. You go see a band, and they're really good, but they have these little shitty fucking amps and drum set that they fished out.
So what did you have, 2 full stacks per person, whatever?
Yeah. When Kevin, when we started, it was like a dick measuring contest. We just more and more and more and more,
So yeah, I do know Kevin. I played in a band with Kevin, and I heard they were like, yeah, we're getting this guy to play in this band. I was like, cool, I don't know him. Kevin played in this band, Nine Shocks Terror, and I guess they're big in Japan. I want you to tell me about that. What's it like being big in Japan?
It would have been nice to go back and capitalize on that, but we did a long tour there, almost a month.
Yeah.
And it was really a kind of a fucked up situation in some ways. We're more popular in America, I think, but
okay.
Since we were paying homage to Japanese hardcore,
they took a liking to you.
Our band was named after a Lip Cream record, right? So they kind of were like, oh, these gaijins are really into our style and stuff.
I see.
So we go over there, but here's the thing: our first record, our first full length, we did a bunch of singles and splits and stuff, which got our name around and were popular. Our first full length record was done by this guy. It was on a label called Devour. The guys was who ran the record label based in Boston was this Japanese guy. He was an exchange. He was a Japanese student attending college in the U.S. His name was Yasuhiro. So he was like, I'll put the record on Devour, but I'm from Japan, and I can get you guys booked on a tour there. And that's like the promised land. That's what this whole fucking band is about, is going to tour in Japan and Europe.
Yeah.
So the record comes out, but almost immediately he gets this fucking notice. He's like, your stay in America is done. You've milked this for fucking 9 years being a student here. They deported him. So now he's got deportation orders. He's all fucked up. The label cannot keep the record in distribution, or no one could get it. And we had a big falling out with him. So it was weird. And also at the same time, Wedge, the drummer, who was like my closest friend, we started the band together. We started H100s together. He had gotten involved with a woman, and he married her. And, she wasn't good for him. And, it was terrible because we were supposed to go to Japan, and it's like, this is our dream, our goal with this band.
Sure.
And he couldn't go because it was like some bullshit, like where she insisted on going. We're like, there's no fucking way possible that we're going to take a wife on the road. It's just that breaks up the dynamic of the band.
Yeah. There's
no fucking room. It's just that this is like another $1,000.
Yoko, stay home.
You said it, not me. But it was an untenable situation. He didn't go, and it's like, this is your band, Wedge. You should be here. This is what we worked for the past 7 years or whatever it was, and he didn't go.
Well, that's happened to a lot of guys. They find a girl and then they start a family and whatever. I say I'm happy for the.
I was.
You know what I mean?
We were all. I love Wedge and wanted him to be happy, but this was not a good person for him.
Oh, is that right?
It ended in terrible divorce.
Oh, I was gonna say, are they still together?
Terrible. No. She hurt him really bad. He lost the house, lost his fucking band. Really, longtime friendships were strained, and it really sucked. But so we got the offer to go because we hooked up with this band, Vivasic, who were from Japan. They played in America. We played with them. They were like, oh, we'll bring you over, But, Wedge should have been there for that. He didn't go, so enter Jim Kanya.
Yeah.
Fills in for that tour,
Oh, yeah.
And once the Japanese got a load of him, oh boy, all bets were off.
Yeah. Was that the first time Jim was in Japan or what?
Yeah.
Yeah?
He loved it, man. And they loved him. Jim, everyone loves him because he's a character beyond description.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he was like, they didn't know how to take him, because you go over there and the portions of food are small, and he's like, you gonna eat that, dude? He's eating other people's. It was like, just that me and him had been together, friends for a long time, and we were like Laurel and Hardy,
When did you meet Jim?
I met Jim in like 84, 85 or so.
Yeah.
He went to Holy Family, and I went to Forge, and we met.
Over in
we were into
Parma.
BMX and stuff. And I was trying to bunny hop like 3 garbage cans. I kept wiping out, and these dudes were like, my friends Jim Dempsey and Steve Orr were like laughing at me, like, watch this fuck up. This guy's an idiot. He'll try anything. And like, they kept goading me on. Jim's like, that dude's pretty cool, man. Like, dude, you into Motorhead? Fucking like Metallica, dude. And instantly we became buddies.
Nice.
So then I called Jim. I'm like, we got a Japanese tour booked, and Wedge can't do it. And he was like, give me a half hour. And he calls me back in like a half hour. He's like, okay, when are we going? I'll get my plane ticket tomorrow. So that was we did that tour. Jim, it was fantastic.
So yeah, so you met Jim like what, high school?
Yeah. I was still in high school. Our first band was I was still in high school, and Jim was younger than me, like by 4 years or so, 5 years maybe.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So, and then were you aware of like all the stuff that he was doing musically?
Oh, sure. Yeah. But we had our first band together. Then he had Schnauzer and Minch and all these crazy, All That Is Evil and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, we were both idiots from Parma that were like, we had no business doing anything musically because we were so weird and so goofy and not really, I'm sure a million dudes who are like just total shredders and witches on the drums and stuff, and infinitely more talented than I could ever hope to be. But it's like they're in their bedrooms, man. They're not going to Japan and Australia and stuff.
That's right.
We were just too stupid to know that we weren't any good and had no business playing with the big boys. We were just like, we don't give a fuck. We want to do this.
Yeah.
And so we both, Jim went on to be so famous in metal and accomplished so much, and just such a unique personality. They broke the mold with him. And maybe me too. But
I think it's really cool that they gave him the key posthumously gave him the key to the city. I think is the right thing to do, because I think he put Parma on the map more than anyone else, really. I mean, what is it, like the 6th or 7th largest city in Ohio or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
But I think Jim kind of made it, the 2nd largest city in Ohio, just through the metal community. You know what I mean?
Well, certainly, Ben Orr from the Cars went to my high school.
Yeah.
So he was a big deal.
Rick Ocasek went to mine.
Right.
Yeah.
So then John Pekovich and those guys from Death of Samantha, they were the big cheese. I mean, they were a big band, Death of Samantha were big. And then like Steve Wainstead from WCSB had a famous radio show. And then I came around and Face Value got really big. And then I was like the big cheese in Parma, And then Jim became even a little bit bigger, Yeah. So we were both like really associated with Parma. And the thing about Jim is we knew our city, Parma, has always been the butt of jokes and mockery, pink flamingos, White Sox.
Right.
So instead of like, I did move to Coventry for a while, but I moved back, and it's like, we're going to embrace the uncoolness of Parma, Ohio, and rep it for all it's worth, until it maybe finally becomes cool,
Right. Well, I think that's happened. I think, one of my more recent things on here, we did a pierogi, because it's a classic Cleveland kind of thing. You go to California, you go to a lot of places around the world, nobody knows what a pierogi is.
You can't even get hardly fish fry in Columbus during Lent. I'm telling you, you know.
Right, yeah. So it's like a different thing, but Parma is unique, and the fact that Jim Kanya, he literally comes up every single time I talk to somebody on here, and it's not like it's the same circle of people. I mean, there may be circles of people that you guys know, like you and Frank or whatever, and but everyone seems to, if you were to see like a Venn diagram, it's like everybody's circle would like be right on Kanya, and it would be the center.
Well, I'm proud to say I was there from the very start with him. And, it's interesting. He made his mark, and Jim is no saint. None of us are. Jim had his foibles and stuff. Yeah. He was like a kind of an operator. He
was straight edge too.
Sure. We went straight edge together. We were in the Normandy Woods during this party. They used to have parties back in the Normandy Woods, and we're like, everyone's passing a joint around. We're trying to fit in, and I Kanye drops it in the wet leaves, right? And I just instantly turn on him like I'm the cooler stoner. I'm like, you dick. And he's like, shut the fuck up. And he passes it to me. And then I bogart it. And he's like, you dick. Man, neither of us are any good at this. We should probably just not do this anymore. So, fuck this.
That's funny, man. Yeah. So throughout the years, you kind of kept in contact with Jim?
Sure. He did a couple stints in Nine Shocks. He went to Japan with us, did the West Coast on a tour with us, and he always wanted to do these old Lex songs and do a record, because Jim was very into documenting things. He's like, these songs have to be documented, Right. It was his big thing, is making sure the stuff is preserved for posterity. Pardon me, posterity's sake.
Yeah.
But we never got around to it,
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, is trying to preserve.
You're doing the Lord's work, or the devil's, as it were.
Hey, whatever Jim wants. Who just said that? Frank. Wherever he is right now, whatever he wants, I hope he's there.
Which is so funny, because he was such a good Catholic parents boy. He loved his mom, loved his dad. Be over there raking the leaves and mowing the lawn. He was very very family oriented, even though he'd be like, those stupid idiots. Breaking his parents' balls, but he loved his parents, and he was a very, very family-oriented guy,
Well, and everything was tongue-in-cheek, too, because he was the Steelers fan in Cleveland. He was, the the guy that was playing death metal, but was the nicest guy
Right.
you're ever gonna meet.
He liked to tweak people. You know?
Yeah.
He liked to see how far he could push people, and then be like, "Dude, come on, man, I'm just joking, you know."
Right. Yeah. It's really cool. So, all right. So, man, going back, that's interesting. You know, it's fun to hear. Like, it's because I'm just meeting you. You know what I mean? And a couple other people I'm just meeting, and it's just funny how everyone kind of has these same circles and everything. It's just really it's really interesting to me, and I'm curious, because I remember I was on I've said this before. I was on a school bus, and I think like 6th or 7th grade, and somebody had played Master of Puppets in the back. They had a jukebox or ghetto blaster or whatever they call it, boom box back in the day. And I heard Master of Puppets. I thought it was the best thing in the world. It kind of changed my direction in life, you know. I'm just wondering, like, what was that for you? Like, what really drew you to music and made you want, you know what I mean, as a kid, or what was the first thing, you know?
My dad was in garage rock. He was a greaser. He was a drummer in garage rock bands back in the day. And so they, I would listen to the 45s that were my parents, like, early rock and roll stuff incessantly. And then my dad had cool records. He had like Thelonious Monk and Johnny Rivers and, all kinds of records. Sandy Nelson, he was a drummer. My dad loved Buddy Rich, all kinds of different records. And I would to me, they were just records and rock music. And I would listen to the 45s, your typical early 50s stuff, Fats Domino, Little Richard and stuff like that. And listen to the wilder stuff my dad had. Jimmy Smith, he was big into Jimmy Smith, Ramsey Lewis Trio, stuff like that. My dad was pretty, for an 8th grade dropout, he was pretty hip musically. So I would just listen to that stuff, and I'm like, this is what I want to do, Little Richard, I would see this like black and white footage of him, and I'm like, this guy's out of control. Like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then it just became a quest, as Mitch Kapka would say, for the almighty riff. So I start, there's a book called The Book of Rock that was in the junior high library, and it was like a British book. So a lot of the bands that they pictured in this book, like Slade and Status Quo and stuff, they looked like kind of scummier and like a little bit grittier and like mismatched amps and stuff. I'm like, I bet this band is like super hard rock,
Yeah.
So it just set me about looking for records, and just like anyone else, I started with a couple Who records and worked my way forward by working my way back.
Okay, so yeah. That's interesting.
There wasn't one record that was a touchdown. It was just the whole thing,
It was everything, and it was just what made you pick up the bass or the
practicality. I had to show these guys the style of songs I wanted,
Is that what it was?
Yeah, and guitar was too hard, too many strings, so bass was like. Plus, I couldn't. This guy Mike Philly, who was a prominent DJ in town, he sold me this kick-ass PV bass real cheap, and I was like. This guy Chris Smith from False Hope, he's a great dude, and he ended up in Keel Hall. He showed me basically rudiments of playing bass, and I just taught myself, and
So what you said? Hey, practicality. Got to show these guys what guys?
Like, the guys in Face Value.
Okay. So
and Lek, I couldn't even dream of even writing stuff,
Oh, okay. So, but what made you want to get into Lek though?
I had shit to say, and I wanted people to pay attention to me.
So you were writing the lyrics?
Oh, I wrote all the lyrics, yeah.
In Face Value as well?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But you didn't sing it?
In Face Value, I was the singer.
Okay.
In Lek, I was the singer.
Oh, okay.
H100's 9 Chucks Terror was the bass player.
Okay.
Stepsister, Amps to 11 bass player. And on it goes. But some bands I did vocals, some bands I played bass,
Okay. Amps to 11, Nick Suma?
Of course I know Nick Suma.
Yeah. Maple Grove's right down the road here.
Right.
Yeah, I've been talking to him, trying to get him on here.
Oh yeah,
but he's a busy guy.
Yeah.
But okay, so that's interesting. So we glossed over Amps to 11 then.
Well, that came much later after Nine Shocks. Nine Shocks was, and then at one point I had 3 bands going full time. We had a kind of like a splinter project band called Gordon Sully Motherfuckers while I was in Nine Shocks, where it was like my friends Jimmy and Sean wanted to do this project band, and they were like, you should be back on vocals because you haven't sang, you've been playing bass for years. Now people want to see you back on vocals.
Right.
And it was just a project band that kind of got really wild, and the shows got really wild with destruction and chaos and stuff. We were short-lived, but we made a mark,
Yeah.
And so that ran concurrently with Nine Shocks. And then Tom Dark had a band called Stepsister. He used to be in Knife Dance in the Dark way back. He was a pioneer in this town early, was there right from the beginning. At 12 years old, he's roading for the Pagans and shit. So he had a band called Stepsister that started off strong but kind of slumped. And he asked me to join the band, and we kind of revamped it. And so I had Stepsister, Gordon Sully Motherfuckers, and Nine Shocks Tear going at the same time. And every weekend there was a show from one of the bands.
Wow.
And we were doing weekend runs and stuff, so I was busy.
Yeah. So which one? Gosh, all right, you're giving me a lot to go off of here.
I'm sorry.
That's awesome. So all right. So which one of those ended first?
Nine Shocks ended in 2006.
Okay.
We had done Japan, Europe, America several times. It just probably ran its course,
Yeah.
I mean, we had gas left in the tank, but really both Steve the singer and myself to a certain extent, him and Kevin, the guitar player, Kevin Jaworski, by this time Chard had left the band. He had some personal things going on. We had another guy, this guy Mike Jockum, he was in the band for a while, and then Kevin joined. He was good friends with Steve, and he was in the Mormons with Steve, and he became the last and most long-lasting and integral part of the band on guitar. But those guys, I think we had, I know Steve got sick of playing these shows where it's like, we became a well-known, popular, big band in our little microcosm, right? But
Sure.
Steve really got sick of playing these cookie-cutter shows with all these bands that sounded like 8-10 bands on every bill. It just became a slog, and he really started having disdain for the audiences, and I can't blame him because it really got kind of fucking hokey in a lot of ways, real commodified, and we're like, we are different people than these people. These people are like they're locked into their thing, and we're just different personalities.
Sure.
So we broke up, and that was 2006, and then I think Stepsister was still going. Oh, maybe Stepsister broke up. We took the core of that band and started Amps 211.
See, I don't know anything about Stepsister. What is that?
That was Tom Dark's band, the guy from Knife Dance. Him and his brother Scott, who's, rest in peace, he died of a heart attack. Those guys were Cleveland hardcore and punk OGs. Scott was in the Guns at age 12. Tom was in the Dark and Knife Dance. They had this band. I joined. I brought a good friend of mine, this guy Aaron, on guitar. We revamped the band.
Aaron
Dowell.
Okay.
Dowell, who ended up playing with me for 20 years.
Okay.
But that band, we started getting popular and doing shows and stuff, and going out of town doing runs and stuff. And then, internecine warfare. Scott was his brother.
Nicene warfare?
Internecine warfare.
Okay.
Like this kind of like, I lived in a house with Tom. His brother was the drummer. I had a girlfriend, Michelle, whose twin sister, Karen, was dating Scott. Confused? You won't be after next week's episode of Soap. So it just was like, me and Michelle had a bad breakup. Her twin sister, Karen, in alliance with her sister, was like, told Scott, you can't be in a band with Tony. He's an asshole. So Scott quit his own band. The band broke up, and like a week later, Aaron, who was the guitar player with me and Stepsister, and Attila, who was the other guitar player, we started Amps 211.
Wait, all right. So, okay, before we go into Amps 211, let's talk about Attila.
Attila Sapo, yeah, he was in, I forget what bands he was in. He was a Parma guy, and we got him. Aaron knew him, got him in Stepsister, and now we had two guys who were killer and could fucking. We took the band in real Stooges, like high octane rock and roll helicopters type territory.
Okay.
Both those guys could shred, but not like metal shredding, like hard rock shredding, right?
Okay.
So when Stepsister imploded, it was me, Aaron, and Attila formed Amps 211 with Steve Callahan on drums and Matt Chernus, who had been in a band. I forget their name. He was in Southern Trespass, another kind of like hard rock band.
Okay. It's so incestuous.
Yeah, totally incestuous. It's insane, dude. The family tree is like,
right.
They researched the family tree of all my bands and they found out that I'm the sap. So we started this new band, Amps 211, a week after Stepsister broke up.
Okay.
And proceeded to kick some ass for about 3 years.
So who's in Amps 211?
Aaron Dowell, guitar. Attila, guitar. Steve Callahan, drums. Matt Chernus, vocals, and me on bass.
Okay. Where did Nick Suma come into that? What?
Once guys started leaving Amps after our run, I forget who left. I think Attila left. He had a side band called Welcome to Bangkok.
Okay.
And I think it was focusing more on that, so he left, and we got Nick in the band.
Okay, I gotcha. Nice. And you guys are still doing stuff, right? Or
no. Just every now and then, Matt, the singer, he lives in Los Angeles. He has a very famous and popular restaurant called Grill 'Em All.
Okay.
It's like heavy metal themed, but
well,
all these people stop in there, Mustaine and stuff. They sign the wall.
That's awesome.
So he has that, but every now and then he'll come back to visit because his mom's.
It's like Kuma's Corner in Chicago.
Yeah, very much so. But his restaurant's awesome.
Yeah.
This guy is so fantastic.
Yeah.
So when he comes back, sometimes we'll do reunion shows, and they're always. We did one with Gluttons right around Thanksgiving. I think this is in 2000. This is 2022, so I think this was like a 2018. We did a reunion with Gluttons, and the place was jammed, sold out. Winchester, and we went to Columbus and Canton and packed them. But it's like effortless because we're friends. We like playing. It's no work to book a show and draw a crowd, and that's it. It's bowling night.
That's awesome. Yeah. So okay. So then Amps 211, is that it or what? Is that where we end this thing or no?
Dude, you better pack a lunch because it goes on and on and on, my friend.
I'm happy. So what came next?
Somewhere in that, I joined Upstab, which was my brother's band.
Okay.
And that was like this guy, Marcus Ellis.
And your brother, again,
my brother, Chris, yeah. He had this band going with this dude, Marcus, who was the drummer. And this dude, Matt, who was Matt Santa Barbara. He ended up in Electric Lucifer after this.
What year is this? This
is like probably like 2009 or so, 2008, 7. No, I'm wrong. Maybe 2006, 2007.
Okay.
I was in like multiple,
somewhere around there,
3, 4, 5 bands at once, Sure. And we were all working bands. We weren't just not doing anything. We were playing and putting out records.
Yeah.
So their bass player, Jerry Gonzalez, or maybe it was Mike Alexander, they had a couple. One of those guys left. I came in on bass, was with them for like a year and some change. And I didn't record with them. We played a bunch of shows, And then my brother and his girlfriend moved away to Phoenix and the band broke up.
Okay.
But his band, it was a sweet band. And
that was a couple years there.
Yeah, a couple. I was in the band for maybe a year and a couple months,
And then you moved on to...
Then after Upstab, let's see, then was Cheap Tragedies, which was this guy, Jeff Gray, and this guy, John Millen. These guys had like a straight edge band.
They're always really good names, though, by the way.
I named that band after my favorite song by this band, The Avengers, who I absolutely loved.
Oh, okay.
They had a song called Cheap Tragedies. It wasn't on the record. It was only on a compilation. And that's a cool ass name.
Right.
So Jeff and John, both guitar players, had this straight edge project with this dude Chris and Ian, Chris Rager, the guitar player, and Ian Harrington, the drummer. And I don't think they might have had a name like Set Straight, but I don't know if they played out. Maybe they had a demo. I was old friends with Jeff from way back. He was like a Face Value fan back in the day, and he had a couple bands. And we were talking, and they're like, "We got this stuff recorded, or these songs written. We don't have a singer." I'm like, I listened to it. I'm like, I'll fucking sing for you guys, So I joined the band. They accepted the name Cheap Tragedies. That was okay. And we started playing out, and same thing I always do. My template is always the same. Let's record. Let's get a record out.
Right.
Let's start hitting the 6 hour radius. Let's go on the road.
Nice. So you did that for a little amount of time.
Yeah, a couple 2-3 years, I think.
Nice.
I hate when guys start leaving. But once the personnel changes, it gets rough. Every personnel change sets you back 6 months to a year.
So wait, so I'm joking here. What's the common denominator here?
Depends on your viewpoint. Some could say me, but I think a lot of it is people love being in a band and playing locally, but when it comes time to hit the road and put work in, it gets a little much for people. And I get it. I do.
I totally get that.
I know I'm more driven and more all in than a lot of people, and it probably rubs people the wrong way because I want to do this really bad, and these guys have they're like, most of these guys would have girlfriends and good jobs, and I would have good jobs too, but I was like, maybe there's something wrong with me where I'm just so into this and want to go on the road and go as far as we can, while not completely ruining our lives back home.
Well, I think, because I've seen a lot of local bands do really well locally. And it's like, wow. And then all of a sudden they get international kind of attention and stuff like that. And then they just break up because the guys that thought they could probably do it realize once they have to leave, now they realize, well, no, I can't, and it's like, I think that happens quite a bit. I've seen it happen quite a bit around town. So I don't know. Is that what you're kind of saying?
I think so. I think also I was like, I've never had, at that point, I never had much balance in my life.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about Frank Kavanaugh,
Yeah.
Frank and Charlie and Mark. Those guys had Outface, and they were popular, and they were starting to branch out and go out of town. But those guys all went to college. They all went to Cleveland State. I didn't have any of that. My whole life, every relationship I've ever had, speaking of this era, every job I ever worked, everywhere I lived, was all all predicated on the band.
Right.
I want to do this so bad, and it's all I got. It's all I got. And, I probably was everyone's not all in on the same level. And that doesn't mean they're bad or anything. They have more balance in their life. I had no balance.
Right.
So I probably was more gung-ho than the other dudes,
Yeah. I mean, I guess it is if you have something set, if your parents kind of got a good thing going on and you have a good base and you're going to these things and it's you're comfortable, whereas you're looking at your passion and you're looking to find comfort and solace within that.
But I don't think it was very healthy a lot of times for me because all eggs in one basket. It's I work jobs, I'll take a job because it gives me vacation time so I can do the band, or I'll live in maybe not the best situation for me because I can go and travel with the band. It's unhealthy. You have to have balance, and I didn't learn that till much later in the life.
Yeah. So where'd we leave off? Which band?
Then I joined the Beatles, and we sold out Shea Stadium.
No, but and then are we at the end of your band?
No,
thing?
fuck no.
Yeah, I know. Let's keep going.
So Cheap Tragedies, we were doing pretty good. I had a mild heart attack. I had 5 stents put in.
Wait, the old heart attack, when was that?
That was January 2nd, 2008.
Oh, boy.
So we kept going.
Just a hereditary thing?
No,
kinda?
just, diabetes and stuff.
Comes from hereditary, kind of, right?
It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
It could be. But anyhow, so we, did the usual thing, build up the status of the band and go on the road and put records out and try to be better and better. And it was a really good band. And then once guys start leaving, it's just so hard to it sucks. Chemistry is everything. You can replace a guy and have a more talented guy come in and can play the songs better, but does it have the original?
Right.
I really loved the drummer in that band. I loved all the guys in the band, to be honest. Yeah. It just, I don't know, man. Once you start losing guys, each member change is 6 months at least setback.
people that have never played in a band before, I mean, there is definitely there's a connection, and it's people joke and say it's like being married to,
100%.
But it's definitely finding that rhythm literally within, everyone, and when you can find that, I played with a couple guys for over 20 years, and we just can get into that zone, you know what I mean? And just really feel it, and, sure, can you go make money off of that? Fine. Or can you just find solace within yourself? Within that, that's fine too, right?
I loved it. It was like, I liked going down to the practice hall and seeing my friends a couple times a week and going on the road. It's like, you try to have the best shows possible, but even when it's like, this show kind of sucked, but we're still staying up late and eating pizza and staying at our friend's house, and other people don't get to do this, man.
Yeah.
They have to fucking buy a baby stroller this weekend, or fucking there's the honeydew list. Dude, I'm eating pizza at 2 a.m. in Buffalo, and I got to jump off PA stacks and make an ass out of myself, and you have to fucking work in the garden. That's the way I looked at it. So anyhow, the band ended, and then I forgot about Sun God. I joined Sun God, Kevin Jaworski's band.
Okay.
Which were awesome. That was Kevin and this dude Josh and this dude Dale, and they had an existing band, had a 7-inch out. And
this was 2010, somewhere around there?
2009.
Okay.
And I think I had the band going at maybe the same time as Cheap Tragedy. I joined the band. It was Kevin's band. I was like, this is awesome. It sounded like a cross between Husker Du and Iron Maiden, a really cool mix-up.
That's cool.
And I really love Kevin. We played in Nine Shacks for years together, got along with him real good. Loved Josh DeRocher. Dale was an enigma. No one really knew him, but he was a fine drummer, really nice guy. And I thought our band was really cool. And they were doing cool trade-off vocals, a lot of fucking twin leads like Lizzie and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was like rooted in a punk sensibility. So I joined the band on bass. And I really liked the band. I did one record with them. But they wanted to tour more finally than I could at that time. Now I was starting to settle down because I've been doing this for 25 years.
Yeah.
So I had just joined the Insulators Union, where I remained to this day, and I was serving my apprenticeship, and I could not take time off work.
Gotcha.
So, and they wanted to do...
You finally cemented yourself into...
I got a fucking clue, right?
Well,
I quit good jobs to do this, and I had to I woke up one day, I was 40, and I was like, I'm smart, a hustler, but I don't have any foundation at all,
Yeah.
So they wanted to
you made an impression.
I'd like to think so. I hope so. I hope it made people happy and it made a mark,
absolutely.
And it was a good mark, I hope. Not a skid mark. But so they wanted to do tour to South by Southwest, and I'm like, I can't leave. I just got in the local. I can't do it. So they got another guy and continued on for a while.
Okay.
And then let's see. And then the Arabs came and they bought Mercedes. First the dinosaurs. Jesus Christ, I can't remember, man. It's I'm trying to think what happened after Sun God.
What kind of music was Sun God? What was that
more rock, kind of heavy indie rock, like Husker Du meets Iron Maiden is a really.
You said that, because the reason every time you said it, I hear of that band Sun.
Oh, Sun was total doom stoner rock.
Yeah,
we weren't like that. We had a lot of melody in Sun God.
Well, it's almost not even like music. They're just making noise.
That's best experienced live. Okay, if you listen to
everyone says
Sun and Boris and Sleep records, it's no one's dude, I'm gonna put the Sleep record on. That's best experienced live because you're usually kind of fucking drunked up,
right?
And you're just it's down, down, supercharged Yeti striding through the cosmos, you know, and you're just doing this for an hour. Yeah. But that doesn't lend itself really to rolling the windows down and cranking the record, you know. I could be wrong, but call me a traditionalist. I don't know. I tend to like song structure. I mean, what do you want from me?
I mean, you know, no, and you know, I do. Obviously, you know, I like everything. I say there's two kinds of music. There's good music and there's bad music.
100% agree.
You know, and no matter what style it is or whatever you're doing, you know, if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. Whatever,
dude, if you saw my YouTube playlists, you'd be like, this guy's schizophrenic. There's something, lock him up because it runs the gamut. But
so tell me a couple of them.
No fucking way.
We're on a first date right now. You got to tell me your top 5 you're listening to now.
It's all moods, man. Put it this way. I have a playlist called When the Homies Aren't Around. So there are no guilty pleasures because I don't feel guilty about liking music, but there's stuff that it's personal, you know, that I'm not, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like stuff like stoner rock and doom rock, that's experienced live because they're usually enhanced by chemicals and stuff. Sure. But I'm kind of one trick pony. I like everything from Hawkwind and jam stuff and Noi and stuff to Letters to Cleo, but
so Hawkwind, then Motorhead too, or
I got a Motorhead. That was the first motor tattoo I got, you know, and then I got a Hawkwind one over here. So it's a common theme, but sure, you know, I mean, I'm over the map. I don't know, music is all about moods, and not every, you know, when you get up in the morning, do you necessarily want to listen to bathtub shitter? Right. Maybe not, but maybe when you're with the fellas and raging, you know, and you want to hear some fucking crazy grind or something, then you might put that on, you know.
Yeah. So when Lemmy came up with Motorhead, do you think he was selling out? Because Hawkwind's a lot more free spirited guy.
Yeah, but Motorhead is like so raunchy and you know, I mean, they were extreme at that time. You know? They were playing still this kind of like their nascent form. They were playing biker rock.
But it was like more formatted, whereas Hawkwind was a little bit more, you know.
But Lemmy also grew up worshiping at the altar of Little Richard, the Beatles, and you know, he was a 50s rocker cat in his true form. And even Hawkwind, if you listen to Hawkwind songs beneath the blips and bleeps and squeaks and squonks, they're just going it's very basic.
Yeah.
And that's the Lemmy thing right there. He was a rock and roll cat from the fucking
Absolutely. Rip. Yeah. That's good. So what were some of your like favorite places that you played in Cleveland? Like
Cleveland?
Yeah.
The Babylon A Go-Go, which was right next to my dad's barber college on 25th. That place was awesome.
So what is that now? Is that Touch or is that?
No, I think it became Talkies for a while.
Okay, I don't know.
Like a bar.
Tell me about that.
It was awesome. We had, like I said, face value was plain, but we weren't like getting really over in Cleveland. It was like integrity was the big deal. So we just started playing out of town. We didn't play Cleveland for like 6 months, which is kind of an eternity when you're trying to get a band off the ground. And when we finally came back and played the Babylon, all of a sudden things had changed. Our music had gotten out. What year was this? This is 90.
Okay.
And those shows at the Babylon, we started doing matinees there, and they were jam-packed, and kids were going crazy, just jumping off the PAs, and just we had a great response. And from then, we never looked back. You know, we kind of made our bones there at the Babylon.
What were some other places around that time?
Empire. We sold out the Empire, sold out Flash Gordon's. You know, we're starting to draw big crowds solely by the fact that we're a working band. We actually have records out. And this was during the time when Scene was really important, Scene magazine, right? And they would never, ever, ever promote. You have Integrity, Outface, False Hope, Face Value, then Ringworm. Our bands were packing the biggest clubs in town, and Scene wouldn't even acknowledge our existence, you know?
No?
Fuck no. They were always pushing the fucking cover bands, Frankie Starr and Chill Factor, you know?
Right. Which are good.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, you're talking about a band that plays the Sahara in Westlake to, you know, 75 drunks every Friday and Saturday night. We're selling out the Empire, you know? Right. Our bands have records out on labels from California and the tour. And I was like always a bone of contention with me because it was all through sheer force of will and through word of mouth. And that was more validating than being built
Absolutely.
up, than being built up by some kind of phony fucking half-ass marketing or who you know or whatever.
Well, being in a band, because we were mid-90s or whatever, I thought once we made our own demo and I sent like a little press kit to Scene and Free Times and they reviewed it and it was very easily accepted, you know what I mean? But I think you guys paved the way for that though.
I'd like to think so. I mean,
I really do think you did.
When Scene was like different, when it folded out and stuff, like the old Scene, like they wouldn't even acknowledge our bands existed. Anastasia, who's written for everyone, she was like into metal and stuff, and but she was like the lone voice, and then eventually Scene changed and they got Ferris and Jason Braceland, and those guys really promoted local bands. And if not, and of course the Free Times, Ron Kretsch and all those guys, Kretsch and Anastasia, and then US Rocker came along, which I wrote for, and that was a monthly alternative magazine started by Brenda Mullen, who she was kind of like she was from Worcester, and she was really into like hard rock and glam. And so the magazine was around in the early 90s, and I knew Brenda. I was always cool with her. I liked Brenda. And then Brenda sold it to this guy, Sean Carney, who was a transplant from Erie, and he made it more of like, things were changing, and he wanted to do more focus on alternative, experimental, underground, like very different type stuff. And I was friends with Sean. I loved Sean, and he asked me to write. And so then I had a column and would write concert reviews and stream of consciousness stuff. He basically let me write whatever I wanted to.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it became like pretty popular,
That's cool. So it was just kind of like a whatever it was. So if you happen to go to a show, you'd write a show review. If you didn't go to a show, you'd have some kind of
I had a column like I went to Extreme Championship Wrestling, an underground wrestling promotion, and in Philly, and I wrote a review of that. Sometimes I'd write about whatever I wanted. I had a column, and for instance, one time we were on the road at one of my bands, I think it was Nine Shocks, and we stopped at Relapse Records headquarters. They owed us some money, and they had a bunch of demo tapes that bands would send to them, and they're like, they're just in a bin. They're like, you guys need any cassettes? I'm like, I'll fucking take them, because US Rocker had a column called Demo Demons in which they reviewed demos. I'm like, oh boy, I'm going to do Demo Demons this month. And I just basically, none of the demos are any good, so we're just like going to town on like, it's just hilarious caustic reviews of these demos, There was one band, we called them and we pretended we were from Relapse. Hey man, we got your demo. Yeah. Like, hey, this is Fred from Nunfuckery, right? I'm like, yeah. This is Tommy from Relapse. We got your demo, and the kid's like, really? Yeah. I go, yeah, man. We listened to it, and it's fucking awful. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? You put this shit out and dare to say you should really consider suicide. Like, Frank, this poor guy's like, he probably staked his whole fucking life on sending this to Relapse Records. We're just fucking him with it. Like, so that was like a column. Anything went, really.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. Well, that's entertaining. To say the least. So what was the US Rocker? How long did where was that published out of?
Cleveland. Once Brenda sold it to Sean Carney, that was done out of a loft on East 44th and Perkins, which is one street.
He had a print press, or?
No, he had a printer print it, but it was laid out and done there at this loft, and then he'd send it off to the printer, and it was a for real magazine, like published monthly with a set schedule, subscribers. Sean put his heart and soul into that thing, man.
Nice. What happened with that?
Well, eventually you run out of money and things are changing. Now the internet comes along, and all of a sudden the monthly alternative fish wrap isn't as
right.
Doesn't hold as much sway.
Never transitioned into the internet, or
no, never did. And also at the time, Alternative Press had transitioned from a former same thing newsprint Alternative Weekly, focusing on really punk stuff, and they became a glossy magazine. But people were buying Alternative Press. We were kind of competing with them, and It just, there wasn't enough room really, and Cleveland is a small media market.
Yeah. So what? So just kind of it just ended.
Yeah, I think it just kind of ended. He ran out of steam, ran out of money, and
this was at a time period where it was like you could probably not foresee the whole internet kind of thing.
And I remember that was when I was living there. It was this guy Mike Schumacher, who was in this band called Shieldbound, a really great guy, and Sean Carney, who published. He was the U.S. rocker guy, and that's how he was able to pay his rent, was doing this magazine. But it's like Mike had gotten the internet, and that was the first time I ever surfed the web, was in his bedroom. Like, it was like, dude, can I go on the internet? Right. I was like, oh my God, I can find anything I want about punk and wrestling and cars on the internet. It was like fantastic.
Right.
But that's when you were like paying by the hour and stuff,
Sure. But you could, it was access to, it really is an amazing thing. It's amazing how quick information gets around now, because of it.
It was crazy when I was...
It changed the whole world.
It changed everything. Yeah. I don't know if it's the jury's out on whether it's better or worse. I have my own opinions, but I remember when I was living there and I was booking a run for Nine Shocks, and I was talking to my friend in this band Drop Dead from Providence. And he goes, dude, we did our whole last tour. We booked it all on the internet. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, if there's enough people on the internet to do
right.
Because I was still running up phone bills, stolen credit cards, calling cards and stuff,
Yeah.
I was used to, with Value, when I'd book Face Value, come home every tour to $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 phone bills.
So you were just, and then back then, to all the kids that don't know out there, you used to have a landline, and you used to have to pay for long distance phone calls.
The worst.
It was crazy.
Then came the tone dialer.
Yeah.
The tone dialer was this gimmicked box that some fucking sadistic genius came up with a way to, it was like a dialer with a keyboard on it and a little speaker on the back, and you would hold it up to a phone, a payphone, and it would duplicate the tone generated by dropping coins into the payphone, which would then trick the payphone.
No way.
By this electronic signal.
Really?
And you would pick up the phone.
I never knew that.
Oh, how I booked, that was like a huge thing.
Really?
Fuck yeah, I booked a lot of shows with that, because this was all of a sudden like... But it was also like sometimes the operator would catch on, and they'd fuck, like we were always scared, like, is ATT going to come around the block in a van and the phone police are going to jump out and arrest us,
Hilarious.
They couldn't do that, but what they could do is trace back where you made the phone calls to and say, get a hold of the party who you called and said, who's the person who called you for 20 minutes from this phone. You could get busted.
Really?
But
and they would research that. There was like investigative units like doing
sure, because it's fraud.
That's crazy.
But the tone dialer, the last value.
This seems so silly now. Like a millennial listening to this is going, what the fuck are they talking about?
They don't know, man. We were pirates before the internet. We were pirates with no safety net. We didn't have credit cards. We were just completely adrift on our own wits, and we're completely idiots for doing it like that. But there was no other way. That's
amazing. So even with me, I started. It was word of mouth, calling people, whatever. But shortly after, it was email and stuff like that. Things became a little easier, but it's just funny to think that you were just sitting there cold calling people.
Oh, there was a list that would come out.
Yeah.
Called the Discord list. And Discord Records, famous Minor Threat, Ian Mackay, Fugazi, all that. They'd publish, these guys were really into networking, like Black Flag. They'd publish a list of all these phone numbers. This called Billy in Little Rock does shows, right? So you'd get this list, it'd be passed around. Now, by the time it ended up in your hands, half these numbers don't work anymore. Billy from Little Rock isn't doing shows anymore. And then this
because he got blown up.
Right. Or, these were mostly kids that lived either at home or in flop houses or whatever. Clubs would close.
But that's awesome. That's a great thing, yeah.
We would use the Discord list, and then a band from Chicago did something similar. They were not known as a big band. They were called 8 Bark, but they were famous for that Bark list, the 8 Bark list. And that was like a more comprehensive version of the Discord list. And this shit would get passed along, and you know, that's how you would network, you know. Right. And you would just hope, fuck, man, we really need to book Tuscaloosa on this night. It's the only town of any size between this town and that town, and like I fucking hope Trevor still books shows in Tuscaloosa. And you call the dude, and if he picks up and it's actually the dude, it's like, fuck yes, you know. Now, you know, you're past the first boss that you got to fight in fucking Mortal Kombat. Now you got to convince this guy to book your band, you know, and hope he knows what he's doing, you know, because half these dudes are like, oh yeah, man, I can do book a show. Do I need to rent a PA? And you're like, fuck, man, you know, it was a lot of that.
What was those early days, like when you say, I'm trying to put myself in your situation. Yeah. All right. So you're cold calling these places, you get a show, right? What was like one that like surprised you for the better? Like when you went out there for the first time, you know what I mean? And you got out there and you're like, whoa, this is actually fucking sweet, you know?
Face value, we played everywhere.
Yeah.
We were not afraid to play the breadbasket of America. You know, we were going to take the rock to the unwashed masses.
Right.
And sometimes it was met with disaster. The South, to quote John Stabb from Government Issue, the South's enough to break up any band.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot of frustration. People, they're more laid back and more like, well, we'll try to get y'all in, you know, but not, you know, it's like we're more of like kind of an East Coast mentality, like, you know, come on, let's get this, you know, chop, you know, what the fuck? So we played some hard scrabble shows, but we also had awesome ones like Tri-Cities, Washington, a town basically along the Columbia River in the desert. Washington State is a lot of desert, right? So we're out there. We played this town 3 years in a row, Tri-Cities, Washington. We played at a square dance hall called the Hoedown Center.
Washington State is a lot of desert?
Yeah.
Maybe out east.
Yeah, there's some desert out there.
Yeah.
So we're out in this place, Tri-Cities, Washington, a convergence of 3 stoplight towns, right?
Okay.
We played there 3 tours in a row at the Hoedown Center.
How'd you end up with that, though?
Got a number from someone.
You got a number. You called them from Cleveland.
Called them, met some band, you know, just hours on phones. I'd like, if I worked a job and I thought maybe like, dude, I can sneak in the offices. Like, they're calling people all day long. They have salespeople, you know. Like, how are they going to know that it's like me calling to book a show? You know what I mean? They have no fucking idea.
So you get out there and you're just like...
Just hope for the dude. You have the dates. You got the calendar, all the numbers on the road each time. The night before in each town, I'm on the phone for hours trying to make sure the show's still on. Hey, man, Freddie, everything still cool with our show in Spokane? You get the flyers up and everything, you know? Like, you're doing that for an hour at least every day, you know, making
How'd
sure.
You have the intuitiveness to sound like you're selling yourself? How'd you know to do that?
I'm just a megalomaniac, man.
Yeah?
I wanted to have it. I wanted to do it, and if I had to talk a guy through doing it, how to do it, I would.
How'd you know how to do it, though?
I mean, maybe I'm born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know, man. It was intrinsic, you know. Fucking born to fucking.
Your father was in the music, so you kind of get the osmosis. What?
It's just a personality. I don't want to say plus, maybe a defect. You know, just a fucking. But John Pekovich, my closest friend, he's always just like says like I remind him of Ratso Rizzo. You know, he's you know, you're just like an operator, you know. So I used it for the forces of good to get my band booked rather than like, you know, defraud old people out of their life savings. You know, it could go either way, man, depending on Monday or Tuesday. You know?
Well, you know.
But yeah, so I would just call these people, and it was like a lot of like, and then sometimes you wouldn't hear from the kid. You try to get a hold of him, like, you know, you're calling, his mom answers, like, Adrian's not home, you know, like. You know, he can't very well tell his mom, well, we're fucking, you know, Spike Anarchy and the fuck shit ups from Cleveland. Is our show still good, you know? She doesn't know anything.
Right.
You know? So sometimes you'd roll to a show and like, and I'd always tell the guys like the same thing because their spirits would flag, you know, after, you know, when you're Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights in the middle of the breadbasket of America, slim pickings, man. They're not good shows, you know.
Right.
Dubuque, Iowa on a Tuesday night ain't going to be a fucking, you know, nothing to write home on. So I'd always tell the guys, like, This one's supposed to be really good, dude. I heard this town is fucking. This place is. The locals are really strong here, you know.
Right.
I wouldn't know that at all, but I'd have to tell them that, or else there might be a mutiny.
Yeah.
So you might even be able to get a hold of this guy for a month, you know. Roll to the club and hope that the show's still on, you know. It's like then you're kind of like you're playing firework or gunshot. Like, are we going to roll the club and see posters and flyers? Are we going to get there? And it's like tumbleweeds. The fucking club's closed. You can't get a hold of the guy. Obviously,
Right.
there's no show, you know.
Yeah.
Not like now where you're on Facebook, social media, cell phones.
Right.
Constant communication is constant and ubiquitous. Back then, it was just like
Right.
you're on a pirate on a sea of shit.
Like I said, you know, I don't want to like draw that line and say, oh, those whippersnappers these days, you know.
Draw the line. I'll draw it all day long.
No, but I don't want to say that because I remember, you know, like I hated catching hate when I was a kid from older people going, oh, you kids these days, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and I knew I wasn't doing nothing wrong, you know what I mean? But they just have no idea, you know what I mean? Like when you were out, like, you didn't have a phone with you.
No.
There was nothing around. You know, you were just like out in the. So when you guys were on the road, you know what I mean. So what you're saying though is, you would go out there sometimes and it would just be like a wild goose chase.
Totally. I had a briefcase with fucking, you know, calendars and papers and numbers on Post-it notes and stuff. You know.
Yeah.
Then you call. Maybe you get a hold of the guy and he's like, man, fucking lost my job, or the club double booked it, but here's
and here you are halfway around the country.
Terry in Tacoma, I think he can hook you guys up. So then it's a mad scramble to get a hold of this guy and see if Terry from Tacoma can come through. Can we jump on something, you know? I'm telling you, it happened all the time, man. One time we were on the road and this guy, had a show in Sioux Falls with this band, The Accused, who were pretty big, right?
Yeah.
So this is going to be a big show, and it's like a Wednesday in the middle of the week, which is dead, and we need a good show because we've just slogged through fucking like Olathe, Kansas and played to 10 people and a dog, you know? So, but this show's going to be good, and they have a good scene in Sioux Falls, and our band is known there. So we get to the show, and it's packed, and we roll there. We get there at like 8:30 at night, you know, 9 o'clock at night. Show's over. There's a zillion people there, but they're all leaving. No one told me the show started because of curfew at 6 o'clock, you know? It's shit like that would happen all the time.
Oh, wow. Why was there a curfew? What was it?
Different towns were different. Cleveland's a late town. Cleveland, the first band starts at 10 o'clock. It's
Right.
tradition, you know? Maybe not now
Okay.
because of pandemic, but...
You think that's, well, yeah, pandemic aside, like, do you think that's still like that now? Like,
no,
in other,
things are changing now.
yeah,
You know, because us old fucks, you know, I mean, I need to take my Metamucil.
back like in the 90s, though.
Cleveland
like,
was a late town, man.
Yeah.
A lot of shit happened at JB's in Kent back in the day. It was a club for hardcore shows. Dude, I remember going to JB's and getting there at 10 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm running late. I'm like, no one's even there to open the club.
Right, right.
I mean, Cleveland's always been a late town.
Yeah.
But some places like Sioux Falls, early town. Different
Right.
towns have different traditions and
Right.
different established rules of conduct, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So how is that different? Like, so, all right, so we've kind of talked about going around the states, whatever, but how is that different from like different countries?
Different countries were easier because I didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
We had a booking agent, you know, so they did.
So at that point, when you were doing like different countries, you weren't even booking
For
shows
once,
or
I got to
nothing.
sit in the van
Yeah.
and just be one of the fellas. I wasn't driving. I wasn't booking. I wasn't promoting. It was all in someone else's hands, and it was much easier. We still had issues. Like one time we rolled up into Vienna, and it was generally Europe is much better organized. They got their shit together.
Yeah.
Certainly Japan is. But there were still little fuck-ups here and there, like hiccups. Like we would get to Vienna, and it was a typical U.S. type situation. Like, oh, the kid booked this show at the club, and then the guy he booked it through got fired and never put it on the schedule. So we go there, and there's no show, and then like someone scrambles and finds a different venue.
Right.
And shows moved, and then they get on the phone and stuff and basically, you know, like make Shinola out of shit. But generally, Europe was much more organized, and I didn't have to get involved in anything. I just rode in the back of the van like everyone else.
So, I mean, do you think it was you thought it was much more organized because you weren't dealing with it? What if you were? Can you imagine, like, if you were, like, booking the shows in Europe? Like, what would that be like?
Well, it's very hard to call long distance to Leipzig from Parma and say, "Und Helmut, how is the gig looking?" You know, like, there's language, cultural barrier, everything. I don't know the locals. I can do that, at least at one point, with my eyes closed. I had a real talent for it in America, but forget about it in Europe. That's why you have a booking agent. And it was more raised in Europe because they take it more seriously in Europe.
Right.
They understand, like, they feed the bands, they lodge the bands. There's generally no fucking around. Like in America, the kid's like, "Oh yeah, man, it should be cool." And then that's the extent of his, one time we played Myrtle Beach and we get there and the booker was a friend of the drummers. And he goes, "Yeah, I was going to make some flyers and taking them up and down the Grand Strand today." I'm like, "Today? You're making flyers now and you're going to go up and down the Strand on the beach and pass them out?"
Yeah.
It's like, that's not promotion. You should start promoting 6 weeks out, dude. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
The show ended up being okay, but it's like, that's a typical American view of things. Like, punk rock often means to people half-ass, and I was never with that,
Well, yeah. Gosh. I guess we could talk about what punk rock means, because I would not say it means half-assed.
No, but to a lot of people,
yeah,
punk was like a way of being like lackadaisical, because if you're not, that's too close to being like business culture and capitalist, Because we're supposed to lose money. That is like a badge of honor. You're supposed to go broke doing this. God forbid you charge more than $5 at a gig and fill your tank with gas. You're a fucking sellout and you're a capitalist, So So people use this punk. It's a skewed version of punk ethics, where it's like a lot of times it's changed greatly now because the internet and communication is instantaneous. So if you fuck a band over, you're going to be put on the spot. But back in the day, a lot of times people used punk as an excuse to be lazy and do it half-assed and just say, "Hey man, so all you care is about the green?"
Yeah. I think punk rock, I'm trying to explain why it could be taken as lazy, because it's not thought out. It's unfiltered, completely what you were thinking, unfiltered, raw. You know what I mean? That to me is what punk rock is, and so, yeah, it's not going to be refined. It's not going to be like too articulate. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's going to be
when you have 4 or 5 guys putting their lives on hold to drive across the country.
Sure.
And you're just like, "Oh man,
right. I guess I'm getting too philosophical with
I absolutely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
More towards the art being created,
right,
and the attitude. But once you agree to book a show, now there's money involved, there's people's lives involved, and the half-ass shit. I mean, I've gone to Fifth City with promoters several times because I take it dead seriously. I just lost a job to do this, and you're just like, "Oh man, maybe tomorrow you can play." No, motherfucker, there is tomorrow. We're in Indianapolis tomorrow. Tonight is Des Moines, and you fucked it up,
Right.
I took it very seriously because it was a personal affront to me when you half-assed it and fucked a band over,
No, I think it's gosh, this is hard to put into words, but how important it is to you as an individual. It's like I said, it's like being married. This is why I'm single, probably. Because it's like you got to find that perfect fit, right? Well, to me, married is easy, relatively speaking, to being in a band, because you have to find one person that you gel with. Whereas a band, you have to find multiple people Of the same sex, probably a lot of the times if you're playing heavy metal.
Yeah, sure.
But, and it's an intimate environment, and, there's got to be that whole, like, give and take, understanding, whatever. But, like, you all really have to be, committed to whatever it is you're doing. I think that's what it is. And I think we're still on the punk rock thing. I think it's just like punk rock to me, isn't just music or a lifestyle, or it is a lifestyle, but like punk rock, I mean, God, I don't want to say it, but like, anybody like Elon Musk is punk rock. He's doing exactly what he wants to do. And he's trudging through and doing it. You know what I mean?
Do you know he just, everyone's up in arms about him purchasing Twitter.
Yeah.
But do you know he just purchased Lorraine for $900?
Lorraine?
The city of Lorraine?
No, he didn't.
It's a joke.
Oh.
It's a joke. Keep up with me here.
I don't know. I don't get it.
No, it was a joke I made on Facebook that, liberals say that Democrats don't try to suppress news, but no one's talking about the fact that Elon Musk bought Lorraine for $900 and some expired diabetes test strips.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's a little bit more
just
context.
One of my stupid comments. I'll be here all week, folks. Tip your server. Try the veal.
No, but yeah. Yeah, I think, just to me, like punk rock is just unapologetic honesty.
I would agree with that, but there also needs to be a work ethic, and a lot of times there wasn't.
Right, and that's the thing,
I guess it comes from your perspective. If you're a guy who's like, like a college student who has kind of like, maybe you come from privilege and wealth, and you don't have work ethic like a guy who's like desperate. I was always desperate.
Right.
You're in a different headspace than the guy who's like, oh, this is kind of cool, but I'm into it for now, but it's cool. Where I'm like, this is my whole fucking entire reason for getting up in the morning.
But when I say something like unapologetic honesty, somebody that's like deciding to go into music and go on tour, if that's what they're driven by, I think it will happen. You know what I mean? Right? I don't know. Am I wrong?
No, I could be in a band right now that was on a label and touring around and not working, but I just don't have that fire in me anymore.
Sure.
My personal situation was always like,
so they have testosterone supplements and what?
No, I always wanted it badly, but not bad enough to, I always had my dad's voice in the back of my mind. Anthony, you have to have hospitalization. You have to keep your job, So I'm an untraditional traditionalist, I think.
Well, I think you're an unabashedly Clevelander, because I think all our fathers told us that.
Yeah, but you know what? You motherfuck them when you're young, and then you get older, and you're like, he was right. Oh, I wouldn't listen to anything, but they weren't wrong,
No, my dad was, right. For some of the more important parts of what I needed to understand, I guess I could say that.
Isn't it interesting? We never picture our parents as our age at that time.
Right.
We forget they went through the same churn, the same upheaval, the same worries and fears that we did. Yeah. We just can't see them. We see them as our parents, but we don't see them as a 25-year-old shitting their pants, wondering what the fuck I'm going to do now. I have one kid and another on the way, and I just got drafted. We can't. Right. See that they were going through the same thing as we were.
No, yeah, and totally. It's I didn't have the best childhood, but I always say that. I was like, man, because I don't have any children, so like if I were to have kids when I was in my 20s, that would have been awful. You know what I mean? That would not have been a good...
It would ruin my life, which was already on a very tenuous grasp of fucking not jumping off a bridge. Yeah. If I had kids,
Yeah. So I do not blame my parents for anything. You know, you can always blame your parents for, you know, a shitty childhood, I guess, but you can't blame them for a shitty adulthood. You know what I mean? You have to have like perspective. You have to try and understand what they were going through.
What's the alternative? Either, like just ending up living under a bridge and going nowhere. I mean, it sucks. Look, man, my childhood was no bargain, but the alternative is just staying there or clawing your way up, you know?
Yeah.
And it's more satisfying when you do it all on your own.
Yeah, it's true. You know, I had a sister and it was me, and we were kind of like two completely different. She kind of held a grudge against the parents for the things, and I kept saying, I was like, well, we're adults now. We can see the difference. But she had children, which are great. You know, I have nieces and nephews and whatever, which are awesome. Hey, shout out to you guys. Whatever, you know.
Shout out.
But you know, I mean, she kind of held the grudge, and I don't know. I just kind of see it as like, hey, man, I'm sure they tried their best. You know,
they didn't come with the rule book, and you know the thing about holding the grudge. You know, it's not affecting them. It's only affecting her. It's eating her away, and it's not affecting the people that she's holding the grudge against. And at some point, you just have to say, I'm going to be better than this, and I'm going to overcome. You know, use the bitterness and the hatred to propel you. Use it as octane, you know.
Sure. Yeah,
certainly absolutely. I have. I mean, dude, I had a horrible trauma in my life with my divorce and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just, like, I could have thrown myself off the Rocky River Bridge, and, man, I was close a few times.
When did that happen?
2018, May 31st.
Oh, recently?
Yeah.
So, how long were you married?
4 years.
Oh, well. I mean, so obviously you guys were attached and, you know, kind of, did you have children? Or?
No, I never had kids, no.
No?
But I was also, there wasn't a discussion or there wasn't like, you know, we weren't on the rocks or anything. She just left one day while I was at work and never spoke to me again.
Oh,
Neither
really?
did her family, and I never found out why.
And then you got a divorce after that?
Well, I got served papers like 3 nights later at like 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday by some
You weren't taken by any money or whatever? And...
Certainly she tried, but, you know, I mean, I'm a tough little fucking dago. Fuck you, you know. You want to play it this way.
So, where'd your family come from?
My
way back in the day, I want to know.
My dad's people were from Longhi, Messina, Sicily.
Okay.
And then my mom's people were from like Bohemia, which was you know
Germany,
annexed by the Nazis and stuff.
Yeah,
Czech. So, you know, street kids grew up. My dad was from East 116th.
When they come here, when did they?
Well, they were born here. My dad's people came over from Sicily in 1906, and I think their parents came over early 1900s, late 1890s. Okay. But they were from East Side. My dad was from 116th and Union. My mom was from Lee Harvard.
Yeah.
And they were after my dad got kicked out of Cathedral Latin, he went to John Adams, met my mom at John Adams, and they were high school sweethearts and got married. No kidding. Got married in 60, divorced in 79.
Huh. No kidding, man. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, my
as Cleveland as it gets, man, you know.
Right.
I'd like to paint a prettier picture of academia and success and stuff, but my dad was a barber, my mom was a housewife until the divorce, and then she fucking became a medical transcriptionist, you know. Working class people, though, you know.
Yeah, same here. I mean, same kind of background. My dad, his parents came from right around near an hour outside of Rome. My mom's parents came from Ukraine, Germany, and Ireland, I guess. That's what I'm told.
Yeah.
And so that's what I am. I'm a mutt, but working class background, you know, just kind of, I think definitely I see the same thing, you know, a lot of people I talk to around we all kind of have the same kind of background.
And we're losing that though, as we have children. They don't have that same story of recent emigres, and
which is why we got to tell this story.
We have to. Yeah. My parents and my grandparents, they didn't have time to do podcasts and playing bands and chase chicks and have artistic streaks. They were fucking working in steel mills for they busted their ass to give us better than what they had,
Yeah.
And I have a ton of respect for that. And I'm lucky that my family, they were all old timers. When I was a kid, they were all retired and stuff, but they were hard, tough, but loving people. And I sure wish I could go see my grandparents today. I love them and miss them. And they were great people who just put their heads down and worked and loved all of us grandkids.
Yeah, I think we are kind of like the last generation that's going to be like from that immigrant kind of feeling kind of thing, where the worker class, whatever. I mean, we're all I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but we're all slaves. There's the ruling class and then the slave class.
Yeah, or as
there's only you're one or the other,
as your my people say, the peasant avante,
yeah. That which means
politicians, judges, lawyers, the elites,
Yeah, and then there's everyone else. They don't care. They don't care what color or whatever you're doing, what gender you are, whatever.
Mongo,
as long as you're working for them.
In Game of Life.
Yeah, right, yeah. As long as you're working for them.
Right.
They don't care what you are.
You get crumbs from the table. You get to advance a little bit, get your little station in life, but that station in life is greatly decreased.
Right.
We went from having houses in the burbs with a car and like a turkey in every pot and all that kind of stuff is like now we can maybe afford like a shitty triplex in a shitty part of town because the rent is too damn high. And if you look at a graph from the cost of living keeping pace with inflation, right around 1980 is when it all went south, and our dollar has not kept pace.
Well, I mean, it's because
you and I are the first generation to do worse than our parents.
Yeah. No, well, for sure. I mean, it's by design. I mean, we're the first generation where, I mean, I don't know how political we want to get, but you can look this up. You can look this stuff up. The wealthiest of us have gotten taxed a lot less starting in the early 80s.
But hey, jingle something shiny over here to take our attention away. We have Instagram and OnlyFans. Woohoo!
Right.
We're shitting in high cotton over here. Pay no attention to that guy over there who's fucking pulling the levers that controls all.
That's right. So, all right. So, what do you got going on now, man? Do you have anything that you kind of want to work on, or what? Like, so I say, I've said this before, you breathe in, right? And then you breathe out the bad. And I think the brain's the same way. You take in, you're watching TV, you're watching all this, you're going around taking in all this shit. And then I think like expression is like, some kind of like writing songs or poetry or painting or doing whatever, or woodworking or whatever it is that you do to express yourself. What is it that you're doing right now to express yourself?
Well, presently, Vince, I'm working on decoding the Dead Sea Scrolls, flooding the ghetto with drugs, and seriously, like a fuck you pay me. We were around from 2013, 2019. It was my last run with the band.
Okay, we didn't get
as Weekend Warriors. We did pretty good. We had big tours. The band imploded for really no reason at all. But after that, I was just like both Aaron Dowell, who's the guitar player, pardon me, and myself. We gave it half a notion to replace guys, but by this time, for me, I had been going constantly since 89 with bands traveling, and I was just like, the scene is kind of changing, the sound of the bands is kind of changing, the general vibe and feel to it is changing. maybe I had my run, so I didn't want to do another band. But I have been working on a book, and I've actually done some speaking things in bookstores and stuff with excerpts from this as yet unpublished and unfinished book. But I am working on a book, and it is going to come to fruition at some point. During my convalescence from having this heart attack, I started working on it. Not as much as I should have because I was in pain, but I started getting more strident about getting this actually done. Every now and then I'd kind of put a snippet of like an excerpt on Facebook just for the hell of it, and people would always react really strongly. Another guy in town did this, and he wrote a book just from his Facebook exploits, and it was well received. But I have started doing this long before social media and stuff, so now it's creating a cohesive story arc and basically tying it together, editing and stuff. But that really is what my next and probably last act will be. I'll write this book, run it up people's flagpole, see if anyone salutes. It's called, at first, the first working title was Transmission Shops I Have Known Throughout These United States, because our band was always breaking down and losing transmissions. But then I was like, that is no one will get that. So then it became One Way Tie for Last, which was a piss take on the Minutemen song Three Way Tie for Last. But it kind of spoke to my defeatist but kind of self-effacing outlook, one way tie for last. So I'm working on that, and it's at some point it's going to be realized that I'm going to have a book out. Nice.
I'm looking forward to reading it.
Page 27 is dirty. Thanks, though. I mean, hopefully it'll entertain people. But putting a book out, you're standing naked in front of a crowd, because with the band you have a roar behind you and you can say motherfucker and people are stage diving and stuff. With the book, it's like,
it's not documented though.
No,
that's there.
But with the book, you're naked. This might be total dog shit. I don't know until it comes out, and people might say this is like so self-masturbatory. Who knows, me? But then again, it might be fucking Ulysses. Who knows?
Right. No, well, I'm sure it's going to be interesting. Do you have the book is about
everything from being a latchkey kid growing up in the tail end of the 70s.
Autobiography.
Yeah, but kind of like mixed with anecdotes and musings and kind of like a demented version of Mike Royko's old column, and just kind of musings and anecdotes, but I'm tying it together with some kind of story arc, where you have these divergent arcs that all ties back together to one cohesive theme, which is like somehow myself with very little inherent talent and ability somehow managed to run my mouth and travel all across the world and meet people and hear our stories from those trials and tribulations, mixed with, then I had some serious illnesses, I had a brutal divorce, et cetera, And the point, the challenge is to make this interesting to the layperson who comes in and is like, I never heard of these obscure bands, but these stories are entertaining. That's the goal.
I think that is the goal. And I think that's probably a good place to say, hey, thank you.
Well, thanks. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope people were entertained and informed and, had a good laugh or two,
Oh, dude, I think you're very modest.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
You want to talk about my prick size? I won't be too much.
No, but dude, Tony, thank you so much, dude, for stopping by. And I don't think it's going to be the last time I talk.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks. Yeah. It's great meeting you, and I appreciate the chance to jack my jaw for a couple hours with a kindred spirit, man. Chin down.
Yeah, salute. All right. Hey, Subsealy, we're out.